Hello. In addition to reading the books in preparation for talking about them, I've been also looking on their Wikipedia pages to find any interesting trivia there might be, specifically when it comes to what's changed or corrected for the relaunch books. And one of the things that is corrected is the original said that Marco had acquired a bald eagle. That was his bird morph, but his bird morph is an osprey. And then another one, it says that on the cover, Tobias is depicted as a brunette, but described in the book as a blonde, and obviously they fixed that on the cover, and presumably they fixed it in the graphic novel. But the more interesting one is it says it's the first Animorphs book where the cover morph is not acquired or used in the book, and I would argue that that's not entirely accurate, that in fact, since Tobias is a human and he spends the book as a hawk, he is in fact using the morph throughout the book. A more interesting way to put that particular bit of trivia would be it is the only Animorphs book where the Animorph at the center of the action does not morph in the book. He does not morph from human to hawk. He does not demorph from hawk to human. He is the same creature throughout the book. I'm pretty sure it is the only, arguably in the Ellimist Chronicles, the Ellimist changes form, changes shape, changes what he is, but and so and therefore is not what he was at the beginning by the end. But there might also be a case for he doesn't change. But this is the only Animorphs book where the Animorph at the center of the action does not change form. So there's that. I thought that to myself as I was reading, and then I saw the trivia, and I thought, no, there's a better way to think of that. I mentioned talking about the invasion and citing the example of the line Tobias saying, "It always feels wrong when I lose my wings," or something like that. In the 90s, when the books were coming out, young transgender readers saw themselves in the character of Tobias, someone trapped in a body that he shouldn't be. Tobias's kind of journey throughout the books it's more than just wishing he had wings. It's in the first book, obviously he comes from a lousy home life. It is hard to say whether he would be as unhappy with his life if he, had a great family like Cassie or Jake, a great intact family. But he's never knew his father. His mother abandoned him. In this book, he says that his mother died, and so I don't know. I didn't look up if that's the which one. But obviously, we know that she is still there. But maybe he thinks. I don't know, maybe his friends aren't quite clear on, maybe Jake doesn't know that his mother actually died, or something like that. But, so it's hard to know if he would be unhappy. But when he gets the power to morph, and he flies, or he becomes a cat first, and he's enjoying being a cat, and then he can fly, and so that's why he misses it when his wings, he sees it as an escape from his life as a human that he hates. But then when he gets the power taken away, and the choice taken away, he's just a bird, then he wishes he could get that back. He wishes he could become human again, because that's all he's known. And this book, more than The Visitor, is where he comes to terms with that. And he's not quite completely to terms with it by the end of this book, but he starts eating as a hawk would eat, rather than some hybrid of hawk and human. Jake leaving meat for him in his attic, and Tobias sleeping in the attic rather than finding a meadow like a normal hawk would do. Of course, when some books later, when he reacquires the power to morph, but his human body is not made his default body unless he stays in human morph for more than 2 hours, he opts not to do that, because even though he knows he's not a real hawk, he also knows he can't go back to being a human. He can't. He could do it temporarily for purposes of spending quality time with Rachel, or if the mission calls for it, but he just realizes he doesn't want to give up the freedom of being a hawk, and he has, I mean, what's he going to do? Go back to one of his uncle or his aunt? He'd rather not even think about that. So, so all of that, and then I think this is well, it's obviously it's 10 books ahead because it's the ones where he's the center, or the central character. He finds out that his father is someone named Alfangor, and he of course knows who Alfangor is, and the woman that Visser 3 has been pretending to be knows. This is 23 or 33, somewhere in there. She knows, and Visser 3 knows who his father really is, but he has to pretend not to. And his father is Prince Alfangor, who is an Andalite, but who procreated as a human, in a human morph. And I think probably, let me just see if, because I don't remember exactly if Alfangor acquired a specific human or if he did what Axe did and he mixed human DNA. I'm looking at the Seropedia on fandom.com, and let's see. He is going down, scrolling down, trying to see if it even says whether it was a mixture of humans or. Let me do a quick search for the word human on this page. Species human formerly. Morphed into a human, purposely became a Nothlit. So it doesn't say, and he's named himself Alan Fangor. So it doesn't say if he morphed a specific human or he combined the DNA like Axe does. I'm going to go with he combined the DNA just for the purposes of this because it's more interesting what I have to say, which is if the Andalite morphing technology not only allows you to successfully blend DNA into a human who never existed, and that human can procreate, it's not like a mule where it's sterile, that is a very interesting and advanced technology. So that is another thought that I had while reading this, that not only is Tobias two things, and neither. Alfangor is too. And if he's like Axe, he may be like 4 things, but none of them, depending on how many humans he mixed. But that's the story of Tobias. It's like father, like son. He's trapped between worlds. Now the story of the book is, other than Tobias finding himself, is not as interesting. If the people making the movies are watching and trying to think of what can be left out, Tobias has to do something post-Nothlit heroic, like he does at the end of this book, but you don't necessarily have to use the plot of this book where the Yeerks are importing air and water from the Earth to the mothership. That on the big truck ship. It is not the I've felt bad occasionally that plots like this and The Visitor, and Number 9, whatever that one is, don't necessarily stick with me like The Message or The Predator, and even the plot of The Predator doesn't stick with me, just the revelation. But it's not that interesting. And again, Tobias should do something as a hawk that is heroic. He fires a Dracon beam at a spaceship at the end of this book. It is very, very cool, and part of him feeling like he can contribute to the battle, which he can't often do. But just leave out the harvesting the Earth's resources, or not. I don't know. I'm not one of the people making the movie, unfortunately. I wish I was. I'll be the guy who gets the coffee for the guy who gets the coffee if I can work on that movie. But I just had that thought as far as, because I've been, even though I have no power to act on it, I go over in my mind, if you're going to make a single movie out of, say, the first 4 to 7 of the Animorphs books, how would you blend them together? And that is just a thought that I had reading this, that you don't necessarily have to use all of them, but just elements. So yeah, that's Tobias. That's the encounter. It starts kind of the environmentalist string that goes through the books, intensified in Cassie's book, The Message, which I'll talk about next. But just how wasteful the Yeerks are, that they take so much water. They're going to drain this lake in the mountains near where the Animorphs live, and they think nothing of it, because as I think it's Axe says in the next book, they're just going to turn the Earth into something like their own planet, which is destitute and barren, and that's why they hated it and wanted to leave. They're very bitter creatures. So a great psychological look, and very important in the development of Tobias the Encounter. Ram the Blade Ship.